Hi, welcome to a leafy session in the launch of South of the Sun, Australian Fairy Tales for the 21st Century. I'm Louisa John Krol, one of the editors. Here in Bendigo, we're on Dja Dja Wurrung land. I pay my respects to the First People, the elders and custodians, past, present and emerging. This presentation delves into themes of enchanted plants. In respect for the hearing impaired, a free transcript is available. Exploring botanical enchantment led me to discover that more than 2/3 of the book calls upon trees or other vegetation as conduits of magic or pivotal points in the plot. In The Snow Gum Maiden by Inez Cacero, mountains, trees, brumbies, elements and other aspects of nature come across as a protective force, almost as if the bushland itself is a fairy godmother. Behind or beneath this setting is an emotional landscape, the primary agent being grief. A more talkative, exuberant forest springs to life in June Perkins' tale, Into the Songwood. Here, trees guide a woman's initiation as an instrument maker and musician. Communion with nature emerges via trance states. The tale unfurls more like music than prose, with periodic breaks between one state of consciousness and another, like shifts between verses and choruses. This is no ordinary place. It is the Songwood. The poem by Jaquim Duggan, entitled Then and Now, comes across as a lament for squandered ecological wisdom. As a Gamilaroi man, he says he finds the Anglo-Saxon perception of weather and natural disaster fatalistic, whereas, and I quote him, Indigenous people were aware of this intricate, interconnected cycle and catered to foreseeable geobotanical dangers. There is also a botanical theme in Jackie Curran's artful respin of an old folk yarn: no horse, no cart, no shoes. Not only do pioneers move along a walking track through bushland, the story's climax hinges on an agricultural riddle or trickery, epitomizing the artfulness of women who know their fairy tales and aren't afraid to apply cunning. And if you hear a few little knocks on the roof, it's just our possums and our native fruit bats playing with the lily-pillies. Jack the Beanstalk and the NBN by Lindy Mitchell-Nilsson takes us into some of the book's most comic foliage, delivering larrikin touches and giving technocracy a volley of biffs and buffeting. This rapidly growing vegetable is timelessly energetic, just like Jack. I nearly missed that alliteration, didn't I? Just like Jack. Monique Mulligan's story, The Bush Maiden, calls upon a babes in the wood, lost in the bush motif that underpins a substantial aspect of Australian fiction, as in Frederick McCubbin's painting, The Lost Child, or the novel and film Picnic at Hanging Rock. This theme harkens back to the Pied Piper fairy tale type, as does Sophie Masson's tale The Silver Apples of the Moon, in which supernatural elements occur at a bush waterhole or lagoon, while at the same time the title alludes to apple trees in Yeats' poetry and the classical garden of Hesperides. My own fairy tale, Pomelina the Pomegranate Fairy, calls upon European motifs of the false bride and flower child, though unlike Thumbelina or Cicino the Italian chickpea, this Persian fairy is born fully grown. the naked newcomer carries 3 pomegranate seeds, wears her lover's necklace of pomegranate until an ogress steals it, befriends an arborist's daughter, and finally becomes an arborist too. Her orchard brims with sentient beings, from the chittering lily-pilly ladies to the pomegranate fairy herself, Pomelina. There are also several stories in which vegetation plays a magical part, albeit not centrally. These include The Red Dress, in which the Melbourne Botanical Gardens offer a place of refuge, by Patricia Poppenbeek, GPS, depicting bushland as both dangerous and liberating, by Kate Kennedy, Yes, My Darling Daughter, with a nod to primeval forests and fungi, by Carmel Bird, Cado, bushland as a place to hide for romance, subterfuge or escape, by Anne E. Stewart, Riverbend, a quest to bring rain for nourishing vegetation as habitat and sustenance, by Rachel Nightingale, Curse of the Swan Prince, in which a statue hides among secluded ferns, by Ella Lamb, Hundreds and Thousands, set in the Blue Mountains, by Caroline Eldridge Alfonsetti, and powerful unnamed ancient watchers of the bushland in Kathleen Jennings' Tale of a Bogart, on Pepper Creek. Finally, there's the book's cover art by Lorena Carrington, a concoction of rooms or psychic realms made of sticks and bones. This reassembly of detritus may hint at a paradox in Australia's ideals, ethos or zeitgeist. It implies that we are fragile yet resilient, diverse yet cohesive, idiosyncratic yet communal, isolated yet interactive. Do we read the boundaries of territory as overlaps or as distinct borders between traditions? Where does one person's floor become another's ceiling? And the reverse. The walls are shared, like the fates of so many unwitting characters in a fairy tale. What lies beneath, behind, or above may be as fleeting as deciduous leaves, determined as a root's quest, or perennial as a pentacle. This is one of the lily-pilly trees in my story, Pomelina, the pomegranate fairy. She has a little song and it begins like this. South of the sun and north of the moon, come sit beside me and weave at my loom. Glinda, my dear, spin with me soon, for the good folk near by the bell and the boom. West of the wind and east of the sea, let the giddy grace flow through the roots of the tree. Some from afar and some from a dream, many coloured our hands if we be who we gleam. Alongside the guitar part, there's a plucking line that goes something like this on mandolin. And there's a and then there's an octave higher. And I think we might have even recorded a few lines on top of the other to kind of build it up. Here is pomegranate from the garden, and pomegranate leaves in my hair for Pomelina. This is a native lily-pilly tree. I'm eating its berries now. Oh, that one's fallen, but here's one. Here, a statue fairy is hugging a ripe lily-pilly berry.